All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about the Texans and kind of like the timeline of certain things that have happened, how they went from, 2021, where, well, actually, the article that I was looking at, they go back even further, but how they went from how they were in 2021 to what they are now, which is right now Super Bowl contenders. So the timeline actually does go back to 2017, um, and it talks about their general manager at the time, Rick Smith. He takes leave of absence, leaving due to family reasons and possibly strained relations with head coach Bill O'Brien. Then Brian Gain is fired as the new or is hired as the new GM, clearing the way for Brian to become the chief decision maker. Then the Texans, they acquired Laremy Tunsil, so that was back in 2019. Yeah, I don't know why it says. So Brian Gain is fired as the new GM. I don't know. I guess it must have been a typo with how I have it in my notes. But yeah, so Bill O'Brien. Well, actually, yeah, because Bill O'Brien, he's the one that orchestrated the trade with the Cardinals to get David Johnson and trade away DeAndre Hopkins. Um, but yeah, they got Laremy Tunsil from the Miami Dolphins, and Jadeveon Clowney was traded to the Seahawks. Laremy Tunsil turned into like one of the best left tackles in the NFL. Um, Bill O'Brien is officially named So Bill O'Brien is officially named the GM. This is now January 28th of 2020, solidifying his control over the team. Yeah, so it wasn't a typo. So yeah, Brian Gain, he was let go. So then March 16th of 2020, DeAndre Hopkins is traded to the Cardinals for David Johnson. And that was a very controversial move because David Johnson, now you go back to 2016, 2015, well 2015 is when he burst onto the scene, had that 3-touchdown game against the Eagles on Sunday night. 2016 was his best season by far. And he was the best running back in the NFL that year, arguably. And I also had him in fantasy, and he helped me win my fantasy championship. But then injuries kind of slowed him down, and the Cardinals, they went from, because they were a contender, they went to the NFC Championship game against the Panthers. The Panthers did destroy them, but they did go to the NFC Championship game. 2016 was a down year, and it just kept getting worse. And David Johnson got hurt week 1 of 2017. I think he suffered a wrist injury, and he just wasn't the same player after that. But again, I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that the Cardinals were just declining as a team all around. So, yeah. Then he gets traded to the Texans for DeAndre Hopkins, and the Cardinals won that trade. And David Johnson just, not the same player. So it just didn't make any sense. 2020 just ended up being a down year for the Texans, and they were a contender. I mean, if you remember, they were up 24-0 against the Chiefs in the playoffs, and then the Chiefs came back and won, I think it was like 51-31. So yeah, he was fired. Bill O'Brien was fired in October of 2020 as the head coach and GM after an 0-4 start to the season. Then in January of 2021, so Texans bring in a new GM. Deshaun Watson now requests a trade in January 28th of 2021. David Culley is hired as the new head coach. And then, the stuff with Deshaun Watson, the off-the-field stuff, that all starts happening. And he ends up not playing in 2021. So David Culley ended up being fired after a 4-13 season, and Watson not playing. Lovie Smith then is brought in. He's fired after a 3-13-1 season. And I did bring this up. They won that game against the Colts, final week of the regular season. And that gave them the number 2 overall pick instead of the number 1 overall pick. And that's what led to them getting C.JStroud. So they ended up hiring DeMeco Ryans on January 31st, 2023. He's hired. April 27th, last year's draft, they draft C.JStroud. They draft Will Anderson Jr. And they end up having a great well, they had a great season, exceeded expectations, went 10-7, won the division, won a playoff game, and then they go out. They have a solid free agency. They bring in Danielle Hunter. They bring in Azeez Al-Shire from the 49ers, and then they also bring in DeMeco Autry from the Titans. So they bolster that defensive line. They lost Jonathan Grenard. I thought it was Greenyard, but at least from one of the football YouTubers I watched, they pronounce it Grenard. So I guess that's my bad then. But they had those guys on defense to go along with Will Anderson. And then most recently, they acquired Stefon Diggs from the Houston Texans. And to go along with Tank Dell, another guy they drafted in last year's draft, Nico Collins, who I think his rookie season was 2021. And then they also got Joe Mixon. So the Texans really loaded up this offseason. And on top of that, we still haven't even gotten to the draft yet. And what they traded for Diggs, it wasn't even their pick. So you got to love what the Texans are doing. And it's been a long road for them. They did go from being contenders back down to being, I guess I'll just say pretenders, and then back to contenders again. And now they're Super Bowl contenders, I think. Especially with getting Diggs now. So, and you thought after they when they traded Deshaun Watson and the Browns gave him all that money, people were wondering, when are the Texans going to be good again? Because that final year of Watson, they went 4-13 or 4-12. It just was not. It wasn't good. I mean, Deshaun Watson was good. He was putting up good numbers, but the Texans just were not a good team. And yeah, he doesn't play in 2021 with all the stuff that happened off the field. Don't have to get into that, but yeah, then they move off of him. He goes to the Browns. You got Davis Mills as your quarterback. Tyrod Taylor also. I forgot Tyrod Taylor was on the Texans too. But they got it right. They got it right. Now, I don't think people weren't really fans of what they did with David Culley and Lovie Smith, and I understand that. But then they bring in DeMeco Ryans, and they draft C.J.Stroud, and now look at them. I mean, if David Culley had this team and Lovie Smith had this team, what would the Texans be? I don't know. I don't know. But the Texans really turned it around. And they are going to be a legit contender in the AFC for a long time. And especially now, with the cherry on top, you get Stefon Diggs. I mean, the sky's the limit. They could definitely go to the Super Bowl. They definitely have that chance. But again, you got to get past the Chiefs. And I know I did mention this, but they did beat the Bengals. They did lose to the Ravens twice. We have not seen C.J.Stroud in this group take on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And we will see that in 2024, which I'm really looking forward to. Now, I don't know if I think the Texans are the road team because they are playing each other. I think the Texans are the road team. So we could very well see the Texans take on the Chiefs opening night on that first Thursday. Which, sign me up for it. Sign me up for that. Because that should be... Now, I would like to see that game played later in the season, but if that's the first game of the year, sign me up. Because I think that's a road game. Let me just pull up the Chiefs or the Texans schedule here. Because I believe it is. I believe the Texans are the road team. So let's see. And I actually did look at their schedule. Yeah, the Texans are the away team. So, and the Ravens are also a road opponent as well. So maybe it's either going to be one of those two teams, I would think, or maybe the Chargers with Harbaugh. It's possible. But my phone is still blowing up over that earthquake. Yeah, but like I said, sign me up if it's the Texans. I would love for that to be the matchup to start the year. So, but again, love what they have done. The trio of wide receivers, which we will talk about in the next segment. And Diggs doesn't have to be the. Okay, well, all my hats just fell. That's funny. There wasn't any earthquake again. That all just came crashing down. So yeah, on the I have like a little shelf here with a bunch of hats on it, and that just all came falling down. Thankfully, nothing on top of my desk here fell because that'd be really bad. But yeah, so that just I'm gonna go back and rewatch that. Well, that that that's just what today's been. So now I just completely lost my train of thought. But I really got to go back and watch this now. But I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, I'm really excited over the Texans. Can't wait to see what they're going to be able to do. So I got a little bit of a mess to clean up when I'm done here, but which shouldn't take that. Literally every single hat. I'm not going to turn my laptop because I don't want to because then my camera's going to glitch out. But yeah, that didn't expect that to happen. But of course, this happens after the earthquake. Whatever. Yeah, that's all I got. That's all I got for the show today, guys. I'm wrapping it up. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So let me know what you guys think about the Texans because I'm really high on them. I think they are going to be a top AFC team in 2024 with now Diggs. So let's see what they can do. But actually, before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And I said the old link, GSMCPodcast.net. Makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. Again, GSMCPodcast.net. See, what just happened, that really just threw me off. But anyways, when we come back from our second break of the show, we'll talk about the trio rankings of wide receivers, and I'll give you my thoughts on that when we come back. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.